Physics is the scientific study of matter, energy, and their interactions. It seeks to understand the fundamental principles that govern the behavior of the universe, from the smallest subatomic particles to the largest galaxies.
Now listen to part of a talk in a physics class. The concept of temperature has evolved from the common concepts of hot and cold. Human perception of what feels hot or cold is a relative one. For example, if you place one hand in hot water and the other in cold water, and then place both hands in tepid water, the tepid water will feel cool to the hand that was in hot water and warm to the one that was in cold water. The scientific definition of temperature is less ambiguous than your senses of hot and cold. Temperature is operationally defined to be what we measure with a thermometer. Two accurate thermometers, one placed in hot water and the other in cold water, will show the hot water to have a higher temperature. If they are then placed in the tepid water, both will give identical readings. Again, just to reiterate, temperature is the quantity measured by a thermometer. Now, any physical property that depends on temperature and whose response to temperature is reproducible can be used as the basis of a thermometer. Because many physical properties depend on temperature, the variety of thermometers is remarkable. For example, volume increases with temperature for most substances. This property is the basis for the common alcohol thermometer, the old mercury thermometer, and the bimetallic strip. Other properties used to measure temperature include electrical resistance and color, and the emission of infrared radiation. Question: why does the professor say this? Again, just to reiterate, temperature is the quantity measured by a thermometer. What is the professor's attitude towards thermometers? Now listen to part of a talk in a physics class. Much of what we value in life is fluid. A breath of fresh winter air, the hot blue flame in our gas cooker, the water we drink, swim in, and bathe in, the blood in our veins. So, what exactly is a fluid? Matter most commonly exists as a solid, liquid, or gas. These states are known as the three common phases of matter. Now, solids have a definite shape and a specific volume. Liquids have a definite volume, but their shape changes depending on the container in which they are held. And gases have neither a definite shape nor a specific volume, as their molecules move to fill the container in which they are held. Liquids and gases are considered to be fluids because they yield to shearing forces, whereas solids resist them. A container, for example, is a shearing force, since it forces liquids and gases to change shape based on its dimensions. Solids don't change based on their container. Atoms and solids are in close contact, with forces between them that allow the atoms to vibrate, but not to change positions with neighboring atoms. Thus, a solid resists all types of stress. In contrast, liquids change easily when stressed and do not spring back to their original shape once the force is removed, because the atoms are free to slide about and change neighbors. That is, they flow with the molecules held together by their mutual attraction. Atoms and gases are separated by distances that are large compared with the size of the atoms. The forces between gas atoms are therefore very weak, except when the atoms collide with one another. Gases, thus, not only flow, but they are relatively easy to compress because there is much space and little force between atoms. Question: what is the lecture mainly about? Based on the information from the listening, indicate which characteristic on the left belongs to either solid, liquid, or gas. Now listen to part of a talk in a physics class. Pressure is defined as force per unit area. Can pressure be increased in a fluid by pushing directly on the fluid? Yes, but it is much easier if the fluid is enclosed. The heart, for example, increases blood pressure by pushing directly on the blood in an enclosed system. If you try to push on a fluid in an open system, such as a river, the fluid flows away. An enclosed fluid cannot flow away, and so pressure is more easily increased by an applied force. Now, what happens to a pressure in an enclosed fluid? Since atoms in a fluid are free to move about, they transmit the pressure to all parts of the fluid and to the walls of the container. Remarkably, the pressure is transmitted undiminished. This phenomenon is called Pascal's principle because it was first clearly stated by the 17th century French philosopher and scientist Blaise Pascal. A change in pressure applied to an enclosed fluid is transmitted undiminished to all portions of the fluid and to the walls of its container. Pascal's principle is what makes pressure so important to fluids. Since a change in pressure is transmitted undiminished in an enclosed fluid, we often know more about pressure than other physical quantities in fluids. Question: what is the professor's opinion of Pascal's principle? Why does the professor mention the heart? Now listen to part of a talk in a physics class. Sound can be used as a familiar illustration of waves. Because hearing is one of our most important senses, it is interesting to see how the physical properties of sound correspond to our perceptions of it. Hearing is the perception of sound, just as vision is the perception of visible light. But sound has important applications beyond hearing. Ultrasound, for example, is not heard but can be employed to form medical images and is also used in treatment. The physical phenomenon of sound is defined to be a disturbance of matter that is transmitted from its source outward. Sound is a wave. On the atomic scale, it is a disturbance of atoms that is far more ordered than their thermal motions. In many instances, sound is a periodic wave, and the atoms undergo simple harmonic motion. Question: what is the professor's opinion towards sound? Why does the professor mention ultrasound? Now listen to part of a talk in a physics class. There are two known hazards of electricity: thermal and shock. A thermal hazard is one where excessive electric power causes undesired thermal effects. A classic example of this is the short circuit. Insulation on wires leading to an appliance has worn through, allowing the two wires to come into contact. This could start a fire in the wall of a house. A shock hazard occurs when electric current passes through a person. Electrical currents through people produce tremendously varied effects. An electrical current can even be used for positive effects, like to block back pain. The possibility of using electrical currents to stimulate muscle action in paralyzed limbs, perhaps allowing paraplegics to walk, is also under study. Still, many in the general public think of electric current running through the body as both dangerous and potentially fatal. The major factors upon which the effects of electric shock depend are the amount of the current, the path taken by the current, the duration of the current, and the strength of the current. Question: what is the lecture mainly about? Why does the professor say this? A classic example of this is the short circuit. Insulation on wires leading to an appliance has worn through, allowing the two wires to come into contact.